With every single day that passes by that I don't get a release date for this game, I get closer and closer to crashing out and going on my Joker arc. Except, I think if I were to go on my Joker arc, it'd be more screaming and less like laughing. Would it even be a Joker arc at that point? I'm not really sure. I would do a lot of puns though, 100%. Yooka-Replaylee is one of my top anticipated games of 2025, and I've not really hidden that at all. I backed the game on Kickstarter on day one of the campaign going live. I played the original on launch. I played the sequel several years later, and of course, I grew up playing Banjo-Kazooie. In fact, Banjo-Kazooie was not only one of the first video games I ever played, but it was also my gateway into VTubing through a certain adorable doggo. Now, maybe it's a hot take, but I thought the original version of Yooka-Laylee was not nearly as bad of a platformer as people claimed it to be. When people say, oh, it's just not a great platformer, I feel like those people just haven't played many bad platformers. Go play some Balan Wonderworld, then come back and tell me how bad Yooka-Laylee is. I dare you. I thought the game was fine. It was like a solid B- in my book. There were some really frustrating parts, don't get me wrong, but overall, the experience was beyond acceptable. It was a shame that not all of the stretch goals happened, but as someone who's been part of a project before, I'm not really a stranger to scope creep, so I kind of gave Playtonic a pass for some of the unfulfilled goals. When Replaylee was announced, I was extremely skeptical. I'm not really a fan of remakes or remasters. I think they can be good, but I prefer them to come significantly after the original's release. Like, more than a decade later at bare minimum. But the more I learned about Replaylee, the more I got intrigued by this game, which is neither a remake nor a remaster, but a revision of the original, where the devs took all the criticisms of the original game and just decided to, like, fix it. And after hearing some of the changes, I went from being skeptical to intrigued. Playtonic shadow dropped a Yooka-Replaylee demo on Steam about 2 weeks ago, and of course I had to give it a go. As of the recording of this video, I've played it through 2 times. I streamed my first run through the demo and talked briefly about my thoughts during it. I also went back and replayed it since I needed to capture footage and wanted to test out a few things that came to mind later. And then, like the absolute genius that I am, I accidentally deleted all that footage. After 2 hours of trying to recover it, I was unable to salvage it, so we're just gonna use the stream VOD. I'm sorry for that. Aww. My model will be in the footage as well as my overlays. It does seem like chat kept my hair white the entire time I played the demo, so remember that green-haired Amalia is the YouTube video Amalia, aka me talking to you right now. White-haired Amalia is the Amalia from the VOD, and all of the VOD audio has been muted. I'm going to spoil my thoughts a bit and just go ahead and say that the demo was good. It's no longer available for download as of the posting of this video, but I did enjoy my time with it. The demo was not perfect in some ways, and I'll talk about why in this first section of the video, which will be dedicated just to the demo. The second section of this video is going to be me kind of giving some opinions about some discourse subjects regarding the game itself. Let's start off with the pros. The pros are that, basically, everything gameplay-wise is vastly improved. The jumps feel higher, the gameplay feels way more fluid, and just overall faster. As promised, the roll ability for faster travel no longer is tied to stamina. The roll burst, forgive me, I don't remember the exact ability name off the top of my head, does require stamina, but that's fine, honestly. I feel like it should require some sort of resource given how fast you go when you use it. The gliding feels really nice as well. I feel like one misstep that platformer devs make is that they make characters feel really heavy and bogged down. When you're playing a platformer, you want to suspend belief a bit, and lighter feeling gameplay really lifts that idea up. I'm happy to say that the devs were able to pull this light feeling off really nicely. And the characters don't feel floaty either. It feels really snappy and liberating. I really liked that about how the characters controlled. Some UI changes have been made. They've done away with the butterfly HP bar, and we now have a circle-like HP bar with 3 HP, similar to the likes of Mario Odyssey. The stamina meter is now a circle, kind of like that of Breath of the Wild as well. While these changes are less unique than their original counterparts, I do think they look sleeker and feel easier to read, and they take up less space, so I don't really mind it being different than the original. Not really a UI change, but it appears as though progression has been slightly altered. There are now pagey doors where the heroic duo has to have a certain amount of pages to progress to the next area of the hub. In the original version, you had to pause and do a quiz occasionally to unlock new areas in the hub, and the quiz was based off of just game knowledge. Of course, in the demo, you can't see what's beyond the pagey door, but the pagey door definitely wasn't there in the original at the very least. Maybe there is another quiz, I'm not really sure. The demo doesn't go that far into the game. The pagey doors were likely included because of there being no mechanic to expand the worlds anymore using the pages, so they probably had to make a new reason for us to collect them in the first place. The environments and characters look absolutely fantastic. I was really surprised and blown away just how better the game looks. I thought the original looked great as it was, but they definitely stepped up the graphical detail to a very impressive degree in Replaylee. The lighting, water, Laylee's fur textures, and Capital B's bloodshot eyes were the parts that really stood out the most to me. The devs have put a tiny bit more focus on the story with this revision of Yooka-Laylee. I can't say they're going to lean super hard into it, but the demo does open with some backstory for our heroes and gives them a stronger motivation for the plot. The opening is basically entirely different, and that does feel promising in its own way. I think that having the intro give more backstory and being different from the original is a good indicator that they're taking Replaylee seriously. There's some returning dialogue and story beats, but the presentation is quite a bit different. I know the demo is not the final product, so some of that could change in the future, but it's still really nice to see. The music is also really good. Admittedly, it's been a long time since I played the original, but it does seem like the music has all been remastered as well. Not sure if they confirmed that bit or not. It certainly feels like they took an already polished up set of tracks and just polished them up even more, and I cannot wait to hear the entirety of the soundtrack. Rextro's arcade minigames have been totally revamped. The demo does allow you to play one of the minigames, and I can gladly report, as a proud hater of the original minigame collection, this one is way better than any of the minigames before, and playing it, I felt a massive wave of relief. I'm so glad they redid all of those minigames. They were rough, to say the least. And now it's time for the cons. You might be expecting a list of cons from me about this demo, and frankly, I only have one. And even with this con, there's a bit of a caveat with it because in the times I played the demo, I only experienced this issue the first time. There has been some talk about the demo not being optimized. My experience with it is that, no, it does not feel like the demo runs the best, even with my very beefy PC specs on the screen. However, please note that I'm specifically saying the demo doesn't feel like it runs the best. Demos are usually not nearly as optimized as the final product, so I don't want to sit here and tell you that the game itself feels unoptimized because that could just be an issue with the demo and it could be totally fixed by launch. I streamed the game with OBS and my very large VTuber model up, and I did have to turn the graphics down from ultra to very high, which isn't really much of an issue, but there were still some bits of stuttering even after that. Most of the lag was in cutscenes in particular, but there were occasional blips of frame lag during gameplay. This was all totally absent in playthrough number 2 of the demo, however, when I was not streaming. Because it happened at specific points and because I didn't experience lag the second time playing, I feel as though this is something that will likely be resolved by launch. I'm very hopeful it does, at the very least. I do think if there are optimization issues, they should be addressed before launch, as I really do believe this game needs to start out on the right foot. While I did enjoy the original iteration of the game, I know it's a bit of a controversial subject for some, and I want this version to do well, and I think the devs do too. But honestly, that's it in terms of cons. Playing through the demo, I was hooked almost instantly, and I'm very happy to say that. I do feel like they've put a lot of time and effort into Replaylee, and it really does show. I was apprehensive about them redoing this game, but having gotten my hands on the demo for like an hour and a half now, I'm really happy already. I need them to give me that release date ASAP. One thing that really stood out to me is that it kind of does feel a bit more like they're trying to differentiate Yooka-Laylee from Banjo-Kazooie. The basic formula is still there, but they're doing small things to make the series stand out a bit more on its own. As much as I adore the Baron Bird, I think that making Yooka-Laylee more of its own thing is necessary for the IP's survival, and I'm glad they're doing this. You might be wondering how they're making it feel more different. It's a bit hard to put into words, honestly. I think it's the cutscenes and the atmosphere personally. It feels like they're shifting the tone with the series to be more adventure-y and less banjo-reskin-y, if that makes sense. Like I'm getting more of an adventure vibe with some whimsy versus Banjo-Kazooie, which feels heavier on the whimsy while also being about an adventure and being darker in nature. I mean, Grunty was kind of a freaky lady, not gonna lie. Again, it's hard to put into words, but something about it feels like they're trying to be a bit more different, and I do appreciate that. I gotta say, I'm really looking forward to this game. I think this game and the recently announced Splatoon Raiders are probably my most anticipated games of 2025. I'm just really stoked to see all the changes. The demo was short, but it gave us a good tiny little taste of what's to come, I think. So we've talked about the demo. We gotta talk a little bit about some of the conversations happening about this game because frankly, they're kind of driving me crazy. From the start, the devs were pretty open that this was going to be a revision and that while there would be changes, they were not interested in building the game from the ground up again. I appreciate the honesty, and I think that was a totally fine call to make. I've seen some comments floating around about people being upset at not enough changing, particularly the levels not changing or there being no new levels. Honestly, I don't know if they're adding new levels. They could be, but I'm pretty sure they aren't. I haven't seen anything on that. But it was just kind of such a strange thing, I think, for people to complain about. You know, one thing I actually did enjoy about Yooka-Laylee was its levels. I feel like they strayed from the traditional platformer levels in a way that was interesting and unique. Each level is supposed to be the setting of a book, and I feel like if each level were to emulate that sort of standard 3D platformer feeling, then it would kind of take away a bit from the game's world building. Having a lava world, a desert world, an ocean world, etc. works in a game like Mario 64, where the worlds aren't really supposed to signify anything, they're just locales. But these levels in Yooka-Laylee are books. And so it makes sense that there's a lot more going on to them and they're not as, well, generic. I don't know. I saw some comments about the levels not being interesting enough and how people wanted more general level environments, which kind of seems contradictory, honestly. And I just could not disagree more. I think doing something different is very welcome and a nice breath of fresh air. I have also heard some criticisms about the demo not working at all on the Steam Deck. That is actually a bummer. If something does say it should work for something, then it kind of should. So I really understand the frustration there. I have no idea if the demo was Steam Deck friendly to begin with, but I imagine if it was labeled such and people were downloading it thinking they could play it on the Steam Deck, then yeah, I get that being a very frustrating thing to deal with. Oh, we gotta talk about this next one. I've seen some people criticize the game for not having that Banjo-Kazooie dark eeriness like I mentioned earlier, and I've already talked about why I think it's a good thing that Yooka-Laylee is pursuing its own vibe, so I'm not gonna repeat myself. I think some people have expectations that are unrealistic. I think that we grew up with Banjo-Kazooie and we loved how it feels because it's nostalgic. It reminds us of our youths, and despite its weird darkness at times, it has a comforting feeling to it. I think we need to look at that feeling that we continue to be in love with, and we need to understand that a newer game probably will never capture that exact feeling, but that doesn't mean the game is inherently bad. The fact of the matter is that these old platformers are cozy feeling, but there's a lot of memory association with that coziness that bolsters our love for those titles. We're not necessarily going to get that with new games. Also, most of us probably played these games when we were younger, and so they probably felt bigger and better to us. I don't know about you, but I'm 32 years old now, and I've played a lot of games since the 90s, so my perspective on gaming has altered. Basically, what I'm trying to say is that older N64 titles like Banjo-Kazooie will always feel cozier to us because of nostalgia, memory association, and us just being younger when we played them. Whereas newer titles will have to fight harder to establish that cozy feeling because we're playing them with more experience under our belts and at a vastly different point in our lives. But that doesn't mean Yooka-Replaylee will be a bad game, even if it doesn't hit the same feeling the originals did. And I wish more people understood that. I'm gonna be honest. The original Yooka-Laylee hit shelves right after a controversy, and I've long wondered if that just set the stage for people being so quick to dunk on it. I'm, of course, talking about the removal of JonTron's cameo in the game, which was done after some things were certainly said by him. This is not a political channel by any means, but I've always defended Playtonic over JonTron's removal because, I don't know, racism is just kind of f***ing bad, and actions have consequences. I hope we can all agree on that. I can't help but feel like that controversy really soured people's opinions of the game, since it happened so shortly before launch, and unfortunately on the internet, as I'm sure most of us have seen at some point, bashing and hating on something can snowball very quickly. I've always felt that Yooka-Laylee merited some criticism for some gameplay choices, but frankly, I feel like people have become way too quick to dismiss or dunk on it. The Replaylee version included, and that game isn't even out yet. I think Yooka-Replaylee has the potential to totally redeem the original. I made a whole video about that even. However, for it to redeem the original, people kind of have to put aside their grievances about the original and give the new one a shot. And I hope that they do. It seems like a lot of love is going into this project, and I'm really happy about that. I hope it does well. But that's one dragon's take, and I've been told my takes can be quite spicy. You know what one of my mods said the other day? He said that I was critical but fair. I kind of like that. I kind of like critical but fair. So let me know your take on Yooka-Replaylee and its demo down in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please consider hitting the subscriber button, as that does help little ol' me out. Consider liking the video too, that also helps me keep the channel going, and if you want to yap with me in real time, consider following my Twitch, as I do stream on there several times a week and do a variety of gaming, although most streams are Nintendo, retro, and Souls-like gaming. I also have been on a huge randomizer kick lately, especially Zelda randomizers. They have captured my little brain cell. Anyways, farewell, goodbye, and I'll see you in the next video.